And we are live. Yes. I need a little intro. I need a little song or something.
Yes. That shouldn't be hard for you to come by.
It shouldn't be. Um, and yeah, it shouldn't be. I gotta get my behind in order with all the things. I had so many dreams and aspirations for my show. And then we
Hmm.
and then we came back off of and started working again, and I was like, oh, all the fun I was having, all the
Yeah.
drinks that I was drinking, all the stuff.
Ruh-roh. Ruh-roh.
Correct. Yes. And so, but people, this stays up on the socials, on my YouTube and my Facebook page, and so people like they can watch it whenever, and so people come, they just watch it later on or the next day or whatever.
Hmm.
So super cool. Like when I wasn't doing it, the people were like, "Where's my show? Where's Combos?" So it was a whole thing.
I saw a lot of anticipation online for it. So I was like, yay.
Yeah. So people are coming in, but do you want to put this on your page? Nah, you're already doing stuff. I'm gonna put it on your page and then put it on your
I
page later.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Because I'm almost a low-key Luddite. Like, I know nothing of the ways.
I know. You also go like, well, you're a composer and all the stuff. So y'all go away in a cubby hole and hide away and then come back into the
I'm big
world.
on that. I got big
Yeah.
crone energy.
I love it. I love it. The world needs all kinds. Anywho, good evening, Convos crew. Y'all are slow to come into the room today. There must be some stuff going on,
What is
but
it going on
they got,
right now?
folks got stuff to do. But good evening and welcome to Kiki Convos, supported by Cincinnati Song Initiative. Do you know Cincinnati Song Initiative?
No, you have introduced me to this organization.
It is a wonderful organization that supports art, song, chamber music, all the good things. And Sam Martin is the executive director. And I think he is the creator of Song Initiative. They have amazing content. I was watching some of their content during pandemic, and he reached out to me and was like, "So, can we have Kiki Convos on our platform?" I said, "You sure can."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, good evening. And I first of all, I am a fan of yours. And I remember I think my first introduction, when you were in this green dress with the flower in your hair, and I think it was like a string quartet or something, a
Yes.
video. And I was
Mm.
like, who is this person? Who is this person? Then I started looking and I saw some of your older Afro punk videos. I was like, oh, she's a whole vibe. A whole vibe. And I you think you're amazing. And then we had that meeting because we're doing a project later in our first introduction meeting together. And I was like, I really like her. I really like her a lot. And so,
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
yes, I'm going to
I was first introduced
go
to
ahead.
you at Theater St. Louis, the first production and run of Fire Shut Up in My Bones, when it was this very intimate production in St. Louis.
Yes, that's my favorite, the small one.
I concur.
Yes. So let me just do a little bio read. Brooklyn born and bred artist Tamar-Kali is a second generation musician with roots in the coastal sea isles of South Carolina. South Carolina. As a composer, Tamar-Kali has defied boundaries to craft her own unique sound. As a performer, she speaks her lyrical truth with a supreme passion and a voice that will shake your foundation and shatter your expectations with its soulful intensity. Yes, in 2017 marked her debut as a film score composer. In 2017, okay, with Dee Reese's Oscar-nominated Mudbound, which I love that movie. Her expressive and varied score garnered the World Soundtrack Academy's 2018 Discovery of the Year Award and has been classified by IndieWire as one of the 25 best film scores of the 21st century. Get it, girl? Yes. The soundtrack for her score to Josephine Decker's psychological drama Shirley was named the Guardian's Contemporary Album of the Month in June 2020. 2022 saw her debut work for multiple commissions from the LA Opera, digital short, We Hold These Truths, which is beautiful, directed by Peabody Award winner Dream Hampton. Okay, hip hop. That's how I know Dream. A solo cello piece for acclaimed cellist Matt Heimovitz, as well as a return to the stage to perform Melancholy Ghosts and Other Mothers. Beth Morrison, we love Beth Morrison, Projects Commissioned Song Cycle. Freedom is a Constant Struggle is a concert curated and co-produced by the artists and presented by Lincoln Center. Featured Sea Owl Symphony, Red Rice Cotton, and Indigo, which I put on my page, the video from that, an orchestral love letter to the Gullah Geechee roots as part of 2023 Summer for the City Outdoor Festival. Listen, Watch Night, a theatrical work conceived and directed by Bill T. Jones and composed by yours truly with a libretto by Mark Bamuti Joseph. You get to work with some amazing people. Anyway, listen, I could go on and on. In 2024, Landscape includes the score and soundtrack for John Ridley's Shirley Chisholm biopic starring Regina King. History-making Oscar nominee Rachel Morrison's feature directorial debut, Flint Strong, as well as an excerpt of the chamber opera work, The Swan, presented in concert form as part of Harlem Stage's 40th anniversary season. And normally I don't read everybody's bio all the way through. I just but I'm gonna read her bio because it's a gem every time. Please, Convos crew, welcome to the Convos platform, Miss Tamar-Kali Brown. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I am so excited to have you here. Listen, you are an artist that, as they say, defies genre. You are composing for film. You're a prolific storyteller. I have to say that. I got to hear you perform last year in Lincoln Center in the summertime, and we were just blown away. But I mean, to very rarely do you get an artist that goes from punk rock into like opera, right? So beautifully. But I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Well, I am a second generation musician through my father, Richard Brown Bear. He was playing, in the local soul and funk scene here in New York and Brooklyn. And I'm his third and youngest child, only child with he and my mother. And so he, at that point, by the time of my birth, he was still gigging because I have pictures of my mom looking fierce and I'm in utero and they're at the gigs. They had their stuff together in such a way, like in the late 60s and early 70s, like when you would go to shows and stuff. And there was a little bit of that in the 80s. It was a little different, but they had like the area where they would take pictures. It wasn't like a step and repeat, it wasn't all branding, but you have like your documentation of being out, in your fierce outfit. And so he was a band leader. But by the time that I was growing up, he was pouring into me, and had discontinued his gigging life. He actually had studied with Keita Bess, upright bass initially, and he was like, "This jazz thing is real hard to make money with," at the time. So he ended up doing funk and soul. But my first musical lessons were at home. My mother came up to New York at the end of the Great Migration in '59, so the latter part, and but with a lot of Gullah Geechee people who come north, her intention was to carve out a life that would allow her to go back home to live comfortably, which they were able to do in 2007. But I always got sent home every summer. sent down. So I call St. Helena Island home because those are my roots. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. And it's interesting because while Black culture is ubiquitous here, people don't know a lot about our lives. And it's very common for people whose family came up from the South to, go back if they retain their land. That's where they send you in the summer. Like, I remember when Crooklyn came out, and I was like, yes, that's exactly how it goes. So, and I credit my summers there during puberty with kind of like when I tapped into my soulfulness. Because before then, growing up in New York, I was raised Catholic, and I was in Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade, and I was a choral classical singer. So it wasn't until a particular summer at Vacation Bible School with my cousin, because I would ask to go so I could be active, that I really was able to tap into the soulfulness that was around me in terms of like understanding it in my body and in my voice, around harmonies. And because I remember growing up in the Catholic church, everybody kind of sang in unison, and then going down south and going to a service, we're hearing like 5-8 part harmony, and I'm like, what is this? So there's just a foundation of a lot of currents, especially musical ones. And my dad, the records that were in my home were everything from soul and funk to rock and jazz. So I just feel like I had a really great foundation. And that's what ultimately led me to what I do believe is my calling. I tried to not be a musician, but that wasn't in the cards for me. I went to university to study, to teach. I was an English education major. And by the second semester, I was singing at the coffee houses, and I kept trying to run away, but it kept pulling me back.
As it does always, right? With your dreams will chase you down even when you're trying to avoid them, right? Your calling will chase you down.
Definitely. I mean, definitely when you live in like one of the most expensive cities in the world to live, in a capitalist society where the arts aren't valued as much as they should be. And we've definitely seen that over the last couple of decades with like the decrease in arts funding, whenever, so often people will say you need something to fall back on. But I don't think there's any other career path where people say that other than the arts.
Exactly, because it's not seen as a hobby, right? Well, can you talk a bit about the Gullah Geechee culture? Because I think it's important for people to know, even for myself, to know more about that and how that colors the way you create all your music.
So the Gullah Geechee corridor is a section of the United States that extends from Wilmington, North Carolina, to Jacksonville, Florida, specifically the Barrier Islands and the island chains along the coast. And historically, there's tends to be what people focus on, South Carolina and Georgia primarily, I guess is the strongest iteration. But essentially, during the time of chattel slavery in America, due to the isolation, these, and particularly I'll speak specifically to where my people are from, Beaufort, South Carolina, and the island is St. Helena Island. So a lot of the plantations there were run by overseers and sometimes self-run because of the location. And it's called low country there because it's low, it's a tidal marshland. And there was, malaria, mosquitoes, water moccasins, so a lot of the plantation owning families, they would go further up the corridor to north in the mountains or whatever, and they would have overseers overseeing the plantations and sometimes self-run or whatever. And so the people there were able to retain a lot more of their African culture. And we speak Creole called Gullah, which contains Fulani words. And it's similar to patois you'll hear in the Caribbean. I remember my mom telling me, like, from her generation, she was still getting her hair wrapped in thread. There was a lot of African retention, you know. But at the same time, we're descended from the enslaved Africans who came there, as well as the indigenous that were in the area. There were many different tribes in the area. And of course, there was like a mass exodus with the Trail of Tears and so on and so forth. But a lot of our islands still retain their indigenous names: Kusaw, Data, Paliwana. You know, we have the Ashpu, Kombai, and Edisto rivers, Edisto Island. These are all indigenous names. And so Sea Island Symphony deals with a lot of the history in the area. The Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor was the site for a lot of things during the Civil War. Of course, South Carolina seceded from the Union first in order to retain its chattel slavery system, because back then, because of the rice trade, they were like probably one of the richest states. And the first shots were in Fort Sumter, which is in the corridor. Harriet Tubman's Combahee River Raid. We gave y'all Kumbaya, which does not mean let's get all along together. It's a call for an intercession from a higher power, and it means come by here, Kumbaya. Charleston. Trying to think what else, you know, the gift that keeps on giving, low key. So yeah, so and also we also, in my particular area, we've been liberated since 1861 as a result of something called the Port Royal Experiment, where in anticipation of abolition through the Civil War, because Sherman was making his way to the coast, a lot of the slave owners fled the area. And we had Quakers and Unitarians that came down from Philly, from Penn, here, the formerly enslaved, for a life after slavery, for self-sufficiency, agriculture. And so since 1861, that particular area where my people are from, you know, and in addition, General Sherman created an edict called Special Field Orders Number 15 that ceded the land to the people and excluded white folks from living in the area, which was supposed to be, this is where the myth of the 40 acres and the mule comes from.
Oh, a myth.
Yeah. There was never a point where they guaranteed freed folks 40 acres and a mule. In the Special Field Orders Number 15, they talk about folks, the land being ceded to Black folk, and them finding a plot that they thought was amenable for them to farm and then, you know, have as their own. And you can look it up, Special Field Orders Number 15.
Okay, so when we writing the oratorio for that? When
That's the Island Symphony. It's in there.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, listen, I need to go look it up then.
Yep, it's critical. Yeah. So I am going to compose one more movement, a final movement. And I'll keep those details close for now, but planning a premiere for the full and completed piece.
I love that. What year?
I'm hoping for 25.
Okay. Awesome. That needs to be the Americana 26 year.
We got things for that too.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm sure you have a feast for us.
Yeah.
I love you. So talk about how because when I hear you, it's interesting because when I hear you sing rock music, it has such clarity in your tone. Your pitch is spot on. There's no bad technique in that. As we know, in that genre, people like to yell and scream. Like, you have a microphone, you don't have to, abuse your poor little chords. Can you talk about how your classical background colors the way you sing your your rock music?
Yeah. And so for me in the scene, that was always a challenge, because punk rock is about your heart and your soul, and there's no division between the audience and the players, and we're just community. So there were definitely times where the fact that I had skill it wasn't that it wasn't welcome. It just was hard to break through to people. But for me, it was about the spirit of what I was saying and what I was singing about. And if we're talking about a kind of like, you know, equality or equity among the practitioners, you know, some people may have learned an instrument before, but so I feel like there's a lot of room. But I will say, in terms of genre and vocal technique, that the killer singers traditionally have been in metal. That's where you have your Ronnie Dios, you have your Joff Tates, the Queensryche, and I mean, they're operatic as hell. And so for punk rock and hardcore, I would say there are some bands where vocalists were really amazing, like the singer from Into Another, which was a post-hardcore band, was pretty cool. But I would say that HR from Bad Brains, he had the most like operatic and expansive voice that I had heard in punk rock and hardcore. Everything else was more about feeling and anybody being able to play the music, which I think is a beautiful thing about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
So,
we don't we bringing up the idea of genre, that mainstream things belongs to a certain specific group of people, right? Like, i.e., the whole Cowboy Carter situation, where the America found really realized, oops, black people really invented everything. But so I talk a little bit about that, because then you see things like Afropunk, you see things, people, the alternative, and you can even speak to the idea that country music, when we think about it, we think about white people, right? So I would love for you to speak about that as someone who bends all the genres.
well, one thing I will say is Afropunk is not a genre. It was a documentary I was in about
Mm-hmm.
Black kids in punk rock and hardcore. And something that I've been learning as I'm growing older and having opportunity to be seen and heard by people outside of like a very niche and specific community is that I've had to learn how to speak for the uninitiated, as it were, but to have more more informative ways to speak about things as opposed to like coded language and uh, obscure references. So one
Mm-hmm.
thing, and I'm speaking specifically to the fact that when the film Afropunk came out and then the subsequent festival, I think people misinterpreted what the origin was. Now the goal, of course, is just to have visibility for non stereotypical Black artists, Black people, just our humanity, like right. That was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as we see in current iterations, there's really been an erasure of the punk rock and hardcore kids, which is what the focus was. That was what the film was about. And when I was traveling the country with James and assisting him in getting a lot of these interviews, one of the things we were talking about is like what it felt like when you saw Another State of Mind for the first time, which was a punk rock film about lifestyle, and or Beyond the Screams, which was about Chicano hardcore bands in Chicago, and wanting that experience for Black kids in punk rock and hardcore. So like that's very specific and that's very niche. The I can understand the universal theme of being able to come as you are and not have to serve stereotypes being super important. Um, I know that genre is defined by melodic structure
Mm-hmm.
and in some instances instrumentation. I think the hullabaloo around Cowboy Carter, it's interesting. How do I frame that? I think, well, for me, coming from a punk rock hardcore like subculture mindset, um, I am thinking about all the country artists that I've been familiar with over the years, whether we're going to go back to Charlie Pride and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, when you think about, I know that country is the cousin of the blues,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And, I think that if you know American history and you understand like how these different cultures in the beginning of the nation depending on the geography, the socioeconomic class, you understand how these things are, how they develop, and that there's a certain amount of cultural diffusion in country. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you've got the whole banjo situation with the gourd, right? Coming from West Africa. But then you also have stuff that's happening in Appalachia, which Black folks are in those parts too, where there's a cultural diffusion, people bringing their folk songs from wherever they came from, right? As well as the influence of indigenous culture who's existing in all these spaces. I think that the common thread when we hear these conversations around genre is specifically the exclusion of Black voices and exclusion of accurate history. Just like erasure of not just exclusion, but erasure, like purposeful. But I'm thinking about um, Amethyst Kia currently. Pardon me, I should have had a little water here.
Yeah.
But
You gonna get some water? You can get some water if you want.
I'm good. It'll be a whole project. But
Yeah.
but
Well,
there's so many.
I always bring my drink with me.
Oh,
So.
look at you. See, I was uninitiated. Now I know. But like most currently, like Our Native Daughters, the album that Rihanna did with Allison Russell and just Kia and Layla McCullough, and there's always been people who have pushed against the grain, even in the profoundly white country spaces. You know, Beyonce is a major player on the scene. And so what I find interesting where Cowboy Carter is concerned is how she's like, I'm going to hit you in the pockets. And I'm like, she has the platform and the power to do that. And now it's a conversation that everyone's having, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you might have all these artists that have a legacy in the music, but they just don't have that level of visibility.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love is to see her, when she tours this album, to basically, in everywhere she goes, to tap into the local Black country talent there, the people who have been grinding, from before My Daddy Said Shoot, people who she might never have known of. I hope that she has a means to connect to the legacy of, country Black folks in country music and uplift it,
Mm-hmm.
because she has the access and the resources to hit them in their wallets, but none of these folks have been grinding to have.
Right. Absolutely. And she's done some, with some of the artists that she put on there, but there's more that can be done. There's always more that can be done.
Now, let me see that tour. Let me see folks opening with a fair wage as an opening act, with not just a promotional opportunity, but like
Real. Yeah, real in the way like she did with Renaissance. It was a whole it was a whole global movement because I saw it on both continents. I saw it in Europe and I saw it in America. But like, she was introducing that whole Black, gay club culture to the world, right? Like, and arguably, I mean, that's not my wheelhouse. So maybe some people say some people got left out, but it really it felt like there were people who were really experiencing that whole thing for the first time. So
yeah, I'm a New Yorker, and
so
so
firsthand,
my
right?
twirling days, and also before my twirling days, when I was just a wee lass, I was staying up to watch my cousins get ready to go to Paradise Ballroom, the garage,
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, so what I find interesting is just the American style. I would love to see more artists just put their backing behind a thing without feeling the need to be the messenger as well, if it's not something that they're well versed in. You know what I mean? I would love that. I would love to see more of that.
I agree with you 1,000%. I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say something, but why opera for you? That's not what I
Ooh,
was gonna say, but I wanted to say it.
look at you, 'cause you want me to throw down the gauntlet, don't you?
I do.
Um,
This is what we do.
so, I come from a choral classical background, in terms of my initial like formal training around music. And I, at a very young age, I wouldn't have been able to articulate for you that it was that I was recoiling from the very paternalistic style of racism that I was experiencing in institutions. Particularly, I went to parochial school, Catholic school, the missionary mindset, just this type of racism where at every juncture you are trying to prove your worth. I wouldn't have been able to articulate it at that, but it was something that I experienced and I felt. And I made a decision early on that I wasn't going to pursue music in an academic setting because I wasn't fitting to be fighting for my right to exist in a space every day. And so, since I'm a kid that classical music lost, but I never lost my interest in classical music because I was able to discern the difference between the racism of people or systems being the problem as opposed to the art itself. The art never hurt anyone. The art is not racist. It's, the people within the institutions who are operating within like the confines of like long-standing traditions and ideas around culture, class, race, gender. But the music doesn't have any of those limitations, you know? And
Mhm.
so why opera? I love opera. I'm a kid that grew up watching great performances on Channel 13, PBS. And I've come to opera because I've chosen a side, the vocalists. As a vocalist composer, I think I have something to offer. And I think that I want to love on my people, vocalists being.
Mm. You,
Look at you.
because you know that that's not. People think that they're doing that, and they're not. It's not happening in the.
Well, I think that people come to opera from many different paths, and that sometimes it's just an opportunity because you're being offered the commission. Um, I love the human voice. I want to love all my people. Like literally, that's why, and I mean, I always imagined I'd write an opera because I was writing music since I was like 6 or 7 years old. It wasn't always concrete. It was about when I was around 23, 24 that I had my first opera concept. And I started developing that work with the Opera America residency like 25 years later. And at the time, it was like so clear to me that there were not going to be any resources for me to pursue it because I wasn't in conservatory. I did it like there was a very clearly etched out path, steps that you would
Mhm.
have to take. And now in this new era where the industry realizes that it's adjacent to it's adjacent position to affluence, but not being a high profit industry, that there's a conundrum. And that conundrum is that how many more years do they have of a donor class that's going to ensure that this legacy art exists? So, them trying to figure out ways to evolve it and create opportunities for more folks to experience opera and learn to love it so
Mhm.
that it will have an audience that doesn't shrink but can expand to
Expand.
ensure its survival is creating opportunities now.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because people talk about operas dying. They always say that they've been saying that for years, and it's not. It's not dying. Maybe in the way, in the manner that it has
Mhm.
been produced for 400 years, whatever it is. That's one thing. Maybe that's dying, but again, like it's building it wide, right? Instead of building it like tall, where only certain people have
Yes.
access to it, right?
The gatekeeping. Mhm.
When I every listen, when I go into the world, I used to tell people that I sing opera all the time. It wasn't to show off or anything, which is that I've always just been a singer. So it's like, oh, what do you
Mm-hmm.
do? I'm an opera singer. Like since I was 18 years old. I came
Mm-hmm.
into it very early. So as I've gotten older, I get less so I go less away from starting with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then people engage with me and I tell them what I do. And then but I understand that it is important for people to see me, Karen, and be like, yes, I'm an
Mm-hmm.
opera singer because the people don't get to because I'm in the world. I'm in the world. I'm out, and about. And so it's important for people to say that there are Black people who sing opera. There are like normal people who shop at the grocery store that are
Mm-hmm.
artists, that are classical artists.
Truly.
You know what I mean? Like it is,
That's what I feel about punk rock. There are kids in the orchestra who listen to punk rock. There are doctors who listen to punk rock and hardcore. There are lawyers who, you know what I mean?
yes,
The
I do.
binary thinking. It's never been a reality. It's just, I don't know, the obsession and the addiction to this or that, as
Right,
if our
right.
world wasn't always technicolor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, listen, I always say that, and the people who follow me, like I love hip hop. Like I grew up in the city, the golden era of hip hop. Like listening to things. If I
Mm-hmm.
had 16 bars, I would drop them. I'm not very good at my husband
What?
gives me
Come on
praise.
now.
Listen, I can put a little beat together. I don't know, but I love,
Oh, we good, good. We're gonna key for real. Yes, I'm here
yes,
for it.
that's my that's my I love. I just
But
I
by the
love that
same
music.
token, right? What we were talking about earlier, yeah, there are a lot of things I love, but I don't feel the need to censor myself in the art and try to do it though. I'm just saying, because I'm never going to like, I had a moment, but there's no MC Tammy B over here. You know what I'm saying? But I, but but I definitely have a snooty New York hip hop palette. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, y'all. Yeah, Philly. Y'all. New York is it's a whole thing. I'm gonna leave
yeah,
that
but your name
alone.
is Jazzy Jeff, so no tea, no shade.
Come on, Roots Band. They went to my high school, so cut it out.
Look
Cut
at
it
you,
out.
see?
Oh,
No tea, no shade.
talk about. We can talk about that outside. Outside. Talk about. I want to talk about film because now we see more film people who score for film. Well, in opera with Terrence, writing operas and other people coming in, and it's like, oh, because when I first met Terrence, it was through Spike Lee movies, through the sound. That was the sound. And when I got to sing his first opera, it was like I feel like I knew him. But talk
Mhm.
about film, because you have done some beautiful film scores, and like I just we don't get to often talk to people who score for film. Like you don't get to meet them. You just hear their sound, right?
Mhm. Well, as an independent artist, like with a practice of 25 plus years, it's like my mantra is the work is the way. I've gone through, thick and thin, cycled in and out of feast or famine for several years, was not prepared even understand how to work consistently, to manage my time because I was so busy like fighting for my life. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And everything I have today and everything I've done has come in this organic way. Um, I was approached by Dee Rees to lend songs to a song track for her film Pariah. It didn't have a score. It was just all diegetic music, which was a pretty cool and bold approach. And through that, we came to know each other. She came to know my work. And she became familiar with my chamber ensemble, Cycle Chamber Ensemble, which is the project you said you first saw. And so she decided that she wanted to work with me as a film score composer. It wasn't something that I had seen myself doing or even had imagined, but in developing this friendship, having the simpatico as artists, I wanted to represent and show up for that sister. I really believed in her vision and her skill. And so we ended up doing Mudbound. She initially wanted me to score Bessie, the Bessie Smith biopic.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work out, but I did voice Ma Rainey and CC Ryder for the film.
Yes, yes.
So, we were developing this friendship, this rapport as artists. And so we did Mudbound. And so every single step has been born out of a authentic, organic connection with someone. Working in film for me is an opportunity to collaborate across disciplines, which
Mm-hmm.
is exciting for me. Coming up and as a kid and envisioning a future for myself as an artist, the things that always struck me and inspired me were seeing the connections between different artists in the days. Um, Not too long ago, I found out that Marian Anderson was an amateur filmmaker, like as a personal hobby, and she has short films. Like she has there's this film I had seen someone had on Instagram when she went and visited Frida in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
So she would film her travels, and I posted on my Instagram page this photo. I think that she set up the camera of her, Frida, the family, and I was just like, oh my God, I had no idea about this side of Marian Anderson. And it was just more affirmation for me, like around being interested in culture, different styles of art, bohemia as it was. And
Yes.
I never thought of Marian Anderson in that way, right? I thought of
No.
her as this very like straight laced operatic singer, just to see her with her hair down, like traveling and filming. I'm like, what? So that's the spirit of being of artists and collaboration that is as much a part of it to me as creating, because you inspire each other through
Mm-hmm.
these collaborations. And so that's, it's an extension. And also just being a very type A, it allows me to put as much work into the world as possible. Like
Yeah.
I remember when I was just doing like my solo work, like I would always feel not prolific enough. And now it's like if I'm writing for the stage and for myself and for film, oh, I'm gonna have enough to do. And I will have put a body of work into the world, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Absolutely. You are inspiring to me because I feel like I need to push myself more in doing things like that, and I am,
Mm.
I am. My portfolio grows daily, and my husband's like, Karen, you're doing too much, doing too much. But I, I wasn't trained to in that way, right, in that manner, to push myself to just get my art out, to do the thing, because again, I always say on this platform I was trained like a racehorse with the blinders, and the only thing you get to see is the Metropolitan Opera and Carnegie Hall and whatever big house or big theater, whatever, in the classical realm, and never to think that the art really lives in you. It is you. It is, yes, the sound is coming from you out into the world, but there's all this other stuff, all these other things, all these other gifts, all these other passions, all these other um desires, right? That when during pandemic if you wanted to create the art, you had to make it, you had to do the thing, you had to do
Mhm.
all the things. And so I think it's, as classical artists, as we are training ourselves and training other artists in the 21st century, young artists, we need to do the thing that you are saying. I had to create this thing, and I had to do these things. I had to find my way to do my art. Like that is how we should be training artists, not like racehorses, but like,
Mhm.
in this expansiveness, because that's how you really become a full person, a full artist, right?
Mhm. Yeah. When
Mm,
it's not about a thing you do, but an extension of your humanity.
yes, an extension. We forget about that part. We forget about that part. And as I think, as a singer, I feel it, because I sing from that place. So it's not,
Mhm.
I'm not really speaking for myself, because I know I know where it comes from. Like I know how to invoke whatever it is I need to invoke, but the training takes it out of you, and so you have to find your way back,
Mhm.
you know through it, to it, whatever, Is there something that you've not created that you want to create? If you
Oh,
had,
I don't think in those terms. It's so interesting. Yeah. I don't think in those terms.
mhm.
Um, the only thing I ever think about in terms of creation is wanting to stay inspired, wanting to have something to offer. Like,
How do you do that? How do you stay inspired?
but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the part to me. Like, it's more about the mystery of it, like wanting to be visited by the muses, wanting to, keep myself open. I really, whenever I have a project that I'm about to do and I need to, like, get to it, start composing the work, I just try to immerse myself in the world. I do a lot of conceptualizing ahead of time to think
Mhm.
about what it is. When I say what it is that I want to say, not like I'm planning out it's going to be this type of work, but just in terms of like what are the themes, what are the ideas, and just like immersing myself in that thought process, sound worlds, just so that I can get in there,
Mhm.
And so that's you know, my way. It's just like trying to be open. Because I always say, and people think it's a joke, and what I've found though, unfortunately, is that when I talk about creation and expression and inspiration, because that's the triumvirate. That's like the foundation for me doing what it is that I do. And I guess because I haven't taken a conventional or academic conservatory route to this path,
Mhm.
that's what I lean in, because for me, it was always about the practice. Theory only exists to explain what people had already been doing. So
Mhm.
I honor it as a tool for communication, but it will and has never been the end all be all, because it's basically like language, it's like written language. People were already communicating,
Mhm.
you know. But I think that when I've talked about my creative process, people have undermined it, or not imagined that I actually have a skill set, because I'm talking about, inspiration and divination, because that's the only way I think you can aptly describe creativity, right?
Mhm.
For me, it's about a creative process. It's not about, let's see, it's not about formulas. It's really about what I feel in my spirit. It's about imagination, imagining sounds, being able to convey feelings, like that's it
Mhm.
for me.
Absolutely.
I could talk to you about my digital audio workstation, or whether I do my scores in Finale or Sibelius, but that's not where the art comes from.
Mm-mm. No, that's why I didn't ask.
But I'm saying, like, I've just found that how I talk about my practice,
Yeah.
a lot of times it'll throw people off, and people will come up with the most creative and, oh my God, what the hell is that descriptions?
Mhm.
Because, there's not a lot of room for just talking about the uncanny, which is
Mhm.
inspiration.
Yes. Mm. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally feel you 1,000%. It's like you can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't feel it. It's just something that happens. It's a thing. It doesn't just happen, but you know what I mean.
But I can tell you, like, just the things that I keep in mind, and the place I put myself in. Like, I try
Mhm.
to put myself in a place to receive the inspiration. But
Right.
a lot of the work I've been inspired to do is steeped in actual factual historical, you know,
Mhm.
historical space.
Do you
Like,
think that in this time now that we're in, we are, this time of, well, I don't know what the time is because it feels very middle period right now, like the idea that, those of us in classical music, trying to find the way that bring the stories that bring people into the theater, do you think that there's still the way to tell the true stories, to tell the real stories, to tell the diverse, I hate that,
so
stories?
I can't speak for the culture of classical music as it has stood and stands, because I smell of outside. and will continue to, because, like, my creativity is rooted in the real experiences of my life, not as a practitioner who exists within the institution. Like, I'm connected simply by my practice. So of actually writing, being inspired to write opera, but not being an institutionalist or having come up through those ranks. um so it's interesting. I again, my mantra is the work is the way. I find that if I focus on the creation and, you know, putting the pedal to the metal and creating what I need to create, that I will eventually find the partners who can see the vision, or if they can't, have the trust, want to support it. I have no idea what scale things will reach. I know I have dreams. I know I have desires. I know I have intelligence. And that's all I got. I got my inspiration, and I have my ability to put the work out there, and we'll see what happens, because, it's deep. I think that depending on whatever's going on, like, for instance, it's an election year, and I find that business moves differently in those years. There's a lot of tentativeness because people don't know what's on the land. They don't know what's coming. We're coming out of a pandemic, so there are things that got caught up and bottlenecked. There are things that got dropped to the wayside. There are initiatives around, post George Floyd, that got dropped to the wayside. There's a lot of things that are happening. The only thing I know for certain is that I'm an artist and I will continue to create. And I'm a scrapper, like, I have this independent practice, I get it out the mud, like, you know what I'm saying? I know how to do that. So if all else fails, I'm just doing what I've always been, right? So it's interesting, but I can't speak to what's going to happen in the industry. I think that it's difficult when you come up through, like, conservatory academic mindset. It's like, there are certain rules that are arbitrary, but you can't always discern them, right? Because you in the system. And for me, if I waited for an invitation or permission or affirmation, I'd be dead a long time ago, because I've been on the outside just fighting it out. So it's hard for me to say. I know that I'm inspired, and I know that what I'm doing, I think that what my goal for opera is to populate. It's almost like I have a restorative lens. I think that's why this historical work keeps coming up with LA Opera. I did, early civil rights work from the late 1800s through to the Harlem Renaissance. And now I'm developing a work on the life and times of William Dorsey Swann, the first documented person to identify as a queen of drag. I know that I tend to turn a reparative lens to the past, because I'm trying to heal little t, populate the canon with works that would have been essential food for me when I was coming. And that's just how it's been happening. It's not like I'm saying I'm setting out to do that, but that's been a part of my practice for a long time. Connecting the dots, rather, from the past to now, being able to affirm my existence through honoring, my ancestors, the people whose shoulders I stand on. And it's not a curatorial, deliberate, I'm going to do this. It's what moves me. Among a bunch, there's a range of things, there's a myriad of things, but that is something that I've noticed. I've noticed the pattern, right? But it goes right along with, like I say, any good geek loves origin story. So, as a kid who grew up loving sci-fi and fantasy, and, second generation from my dad too, he had all the comic compendiums, like, what what number comic this character came up in, what their powers were, what their origin was. And I love that. I love getting to the root of things, learning the origins. If there's something I didn't know about, and I know my father helped me to develop this love for looking back to the past and being able to trace myself to now. I think in a lot of ways, it's what has sustained people who don't see themselves represented in common society. It's like,
Absolutely.
how else you feel so. And I think that I adopted that practice because there was no sign of me. So and I knew if I exist, it's for a reason. So I love tracing back to find the folks like me in the past, and
Yes, people
tracing
think.
their today.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off. No, no, because people think that you need to reinvent the wheel and they say nothing, everything that's new is old, right? Like,
Yes. And it's like, it's not a well-trod path. It's a path that's there, but it's been obfuscated by all the things, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's racism, homophobia, sexism, but someone, it's a real thorny, muddy path.
mm-hmm. Yes, thorny and muddy, exactly, and people need to lean into that. That's how you got to get through it, right? Like it's not
And you gotta
gonna.
get your bushwhacker because it keeps getting covered up, and then we have to carve our way through again.
Mm, that's a lot of labor.
It sure is. And that's what we're trying to address, right? So
Yes.
that each generation doesn't have to do that work over again.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is absolutely true. What does Tamar do for fun? What do you do for fun?
Those close to me will know that I'm an avid crocheter. I haven't been doing it lately. I've been having some hand issues, but I'm working it out. Trigger finger and just, I guess, aging. You know what I'm saying? Because I ain't a spring chicken no more. Shoot. But I love what do I do for fun? Yeah, definitely crochet.
Uh-huh.
My mother's maiden name is Holmes, and I, I have some investigation skills apparently. Like if I'm like a dog with a bone, if there's something that I want or need, I will find a way to get it or to get the materials to make it. And I'll do like deep dive research. I'll find out really random things. Like once I'm on the path to something, I've been called Sounder. I'm like a bloodhound. Like when I
Uh-oh.
get
Oh, that's how you Scooby Doo. Come on, Scooby
when I
Doo.
get on the trail and I'm just like, yeah. So that's something that I'm really into. Like when I find out about something new, I'll just go ham on like getting as much information. I started making ice cream during COVID. And so I was going down to the homestead in South Carolina. And I just went so hard because I was like, I don't do dairy. I stopped eating meat when I was like in high school, and I don't do dairy. And so there was some really delicious, non-dairy ice cream, but I was like, there's so much sugar in these. So I was going to start making ice cream, and I was just going super hard because I was like, the biggest issue with homemade ice cream are the ice crystals. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I need to do to minimize the ice crystals. And I was like on it, and so, and I would tell those ice cream makers out there, one of the keys, because you basically need to refrigerate or freeze everything you're using as well as the containers you hold things in. So you don't ever have your ingredients really melting down. Like you see, like there you go. You see how I'm geeking out on it?
Yes.
Like that's a pastime. Like don't let, when I get into something, I go hard.
That's the only way. Go hard or go home. That's what they say.
I crochet socks. My big love around crocheting, I can do Tunisian crochet and regular crochet. It's how I've had people say to me, this isn't crochet, this is knit. And I'll go, but it's crochet. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, well, shit, part of me, I'm like, I don't know how to knit. I only crochet and I made it. So
Right.
someone asked what my favorite ice cream flavor.
Yes.
I make a good pistachio. And I've really been enjoying it. And another thing I noted out on is I learned that most pistachio ice cream doesn't use, outside of the nuts, they use like bitter almond, but I
Mm-hmm.
use legit pistachio oil in mine, and I color it with avocado and spinach, and you don't taste them at all.
Well, I'm coming to the house in Brooklyn to have some pistachio ice
So I
cream,
got you.
and I'm coming to South Carolina with you. I'm
You
not
better
even.
come to the homestead because you'll really be eating good then.
Listen, I'm not playing.
Okay.
Let's go.
But yeah,
um,
I love geeking out on things that I'm interested in.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, then, but that makes you interested. That's why you're geeking out on it because you're interested in it, right? Hello. Well, I mean, people always ask me what's my hobby, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a hobby. Like, I really don't.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just I have a life that I live, and there are things that I enjoy. You know,
yes,
I
absolutely.
went to I was like I did a lot of visual art as a teenager.
Uh-huh.
So some of like my albums and stuff, some of those album covers I designed myself. You know,
Okay, okay. Pearl, did you do Pearl?
yes, I did.
Yes. Listen, I'll be checking you. I'll be checking for you. I'll be checking for you.
And, and my spouse, he was a professional photographer for many years. He's presently doing social work. But I felt so crazy being like, I met this girl at a party. I was like, "Can I take a picture of your mouth?" Like that's literally how it went down for that pearl cover. And I was like, "I want to put a pearl on your tongue." Like, but she, bless us, New York. New York is one of those places you can make those types of requests and get what you need.
Yeah. Yes, New York. Well, it hasn't changed much. Well, of course it has,
Oh my
but you know what
God.
I mean. Like you can
Remember,
still find.
pre-Giuliani, honey, the children was in the club. I have some friends that are like 5 and 6 years younger than me that I met when I was 20, and they
Mhm.
were in the club with me. And I was like, "Y'all need a den mother. How old are you?" Like.
Yes. Well, listen, I'm so there's so many stories that you can tell about all those things. You have to but you know what I wanted to ask you? I wanted to ask you, what was your first concert that and I know you were running away from becoming a performer and an artist, and but what was the first concert that changed you on the inside?
That's interesting. I wouldn't. So here's the tea. I was doing the arts all through school. In high school, I was, singing in the choir, all of those things, and I actually fainted at graduation and people had jokes because they were like, you were in dance ensemble and ballet and folk group and chorus and student government. So of course you fainted at graduation. But I think that it wasn't the one that changed me. It was the fight in me that every time I would go to a show or a performance, I would come home and be like, this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I want to do. And then I would somehow talk myself out of it.
Mhm.
Anytime I went to a major concert or event, I came home like just from my gut up, just knowing it was what I was supposed to do.
Mhm.
But then telling myself it was just silly. It was just a dream.
Mm. Talking yourself out of it.
You know,
Why?
because no one was saying that it was a real path forward, like in terms of like being, and then when it was supported, it was like do it as a gig, not as art,
Mm.
you know, like, well, maybe you could sing with this wedding band and make regular money. It's a job. And I was like, no, I'm trying to be an artist. I ain't looking for a job. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference. My father negotiated my first like session work and stuff, you know. Like when
Mhm.
people came, like some folks met me, gave my name. Oh, you want to sing on my friend's album? And I came to their house with my daddy, my 6'3" big daddy. He's like, okay, how much you paying her? What's this? Blah, blah, blah. You know, he negotiated my first, like, you know, jobs and stuff. And I used to call him up for advice. Like, but the first like instances of session work I got, my dad was, you know, helping me out to talk to people. And it was good because they knew this isn't someone that is up here desperate that you can do any kind of way. And she has a formidable person, you know, intellectually and physically, who is looking out for her.
Yes. So important. Incredibly important.
And he didn't want me to make the same mistakes he did. I think part of why I was in denial about wanting to be an artist initially is because he was so gangster about it. He would talk about, you think musicians are special? He's like, you think their poop don't stink? It stinks twice as much. You know, like he was very that dude, you know, because he just didn't, he saw the pedestal that entertainers are put on and how people put themselves in susceptible situations. And he did not want that for me. Yes. So he really drilled it. And then like my work ethic when I was on the road and stuff, like I'm the one, when I was touring a lot, I'm the one that have the transportation ready for me as soon as we play the last note, I'm going to hotel. You know what I mean? But also as a vocalist, you know, you can't be doing what the instrumentalists do because you'll still be able to play that guitar even if you know, gargle Drano. I won't be able to do my job. So, you know, I was just very, and I didn't even realize it really got in there. You know, like I was that person. I was like, I'm going to bed, I'm working out in the morning, I'm drinking my water, I'm doing my things, you know.
Yes. Absolutely. The discipline. Yeah. Being a singer is a whole other. I when I'm doing opera, I'm always taking my pins out of my wig so that I'm the first person out of the door when I'm doing opera. Like on stage, I'm taking the pins out. Girl, I'm taking them lashes off. I'm doing the thing, like all the things, so that at the final curtain, I am out of there because I want to go. I want to be home. I want to be in my hotel doing my, you know, I have to be quiet and doing all the things. You know,
and that's one thing in terms of the genre difference, the preparation. Like my discipline around, I'll practice, but my discipline around just warming up, things of that nature, like I know the difference of my instrument when I'm doing that. And I definitely took a bit of an L with COVID because all of a sudden we were just in the house. Everybody was in the house all the time. So you didn't want to make lots of noise.
Right.
And I developed a little bit of a tick of closing my throat a little when singing because I was concerned about volume. And that's something I've been trying to work through. But I really do want to get up to that level where I'm just really on it with, you know, scales, the whole nine, because it's a use it or lose it situation. And that's one thing when you take the traditional path, you know, that is ingrained in you. And that's something that's so valuable.
Yes, absolutely. You got to get up and crank that thing up. I remember a time where I didn't used to have to warm up when I was young and everything was supple. And you know, sing the thing, child. I got to crank this thing on up to do what I needed to do, especially when I'm, you know, look up and I'm like, oh, I haven't sung in a couple days or whatever. You know, you feel it. If you don't use it, you lose the flexibility. So, and that's no matter what you're doing in your life. And yeah. So I don't want to hold you any longer because I could really talk to you. You know, we get on the phone and we bust it up. So we talk, and I'm just so thrilled to know you, to get to know you better, to get to know more about your story, to share you with the audience. Tell us what to look out for that you have coming up that you're excited. You just made a big announcement today.
Yes, I did. So my work is going to have its BBC Proms premiere this summer at Royal Albert Hall on August 14th. The London Contemporary Orchestra under Maestro Robert Ames will be playing selections from my film Shirley by Josephine Decker, about Shirley Jackson, the writer, as well as Dee Rees's second feature film, The Last Thing He Wanted. You can watch both of those films streaming. And also next weekend, I will be presenting excerpts in concert form of my chamber opera work in progress, The Swan.
Mhm.
So for all you tri-state area people, Harlem Stage on May 3rd and May 4th. I'm really excited about that. The Catapult Opera short is, online, and this is the next stage in the development of that work.
That's amazing. It's so beautiful. The video is so beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll
James
put it.
Bosco was the director. Carl Hancock Rux did the libretto, and it's just, where opera is concerned, the word is that first, foundational thing that's going to allow you to create something special. And I think Carl's done an amazing job.
Amazing. I love the time that it's taking. That it's not a add water and stir or put it in a microwave. Like I love that you're really building it, creating it, you birthing it. You know what I mean?
In real time, right in front of everyone.
In front of everyone. It's gonna be amazing. You got any song cycles that you throwing in my way? I mean, writing.
At present, no. Doing some more film stuff and working on The Swan. And yeah,
Cool.
and Seattle Symphony. There's one more movement coming.
Yes.
So, and then we have our thing coming.
Yes, we have our thing coming. I'm sure
That's,
people. Would you say?
huh?
No.
I said that's going to take up the time for the next, for a while.
I know that's right. I can't wait. I can't wait to tell her to when we can talk about it more.
I know. Next time.
Next time when we come back and we start, promoting it, you can come back. So yeah.
And it's such an honor to be writing for you, sis. I can't wait.
People, thank you. That I'm really humbled by that because it's been a journey. It has been a journey. So to have someone like you come and say it's an honor, I really appreciate that because
Are you serious? Oh,
listen, you hear no more. You hear more
reflection, man.
But you hear more no's in this thing than yeses, and so when I try to stay encouraged and uplifted. I'm gonna take
really.
Child,
I felt so honored. Like I was like, oh my God, she wants me right to her. Like I was like, oh my God.
Yes, girl. I can't wait. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm gonna wrap it up because like I said, I could talk to you all day. Thank you for coming onto this platform, and I'm gonna make sure that I send you the link so you can put it on your page. And the Combos crew, thank you for coming. Sam, thank you. Listen, it is an honor and a privilege, and I enjoy. Listen, I don't know when Combos is coming back. I'm not scheduled to come back because girlfriend has to sing. Got to go back to work.
I know that's right.
I'm singing and making my debut in New York Phil in 2 weeks. I'm very excited about that.
I'm very excited.
I'm very excited. I said this. I said, will I ever get a chance to do that? And yes, it's happening. So anyway, I'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Tamar. Don't go anywhere, okay?
All
right. Good night, everybody. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye. Yeah, I almost cut the whole dang on thing off. Anyway, good night.